people who have, called in sick or lied about where they're at just so that they could spend a few extra hours at the casino or racetrack. Though that's another warning sign. If anyone can answer yes to one or both of those questions, it really means that they probably should consider talking to someone about their gambling activities. But there are actually a host of other questions and actually online questionnaires that people can self-administer. It's all confidential, anonymous. If you actually go to NICOS website, the one that you mentioned earlier, www.nicoschc.org, they can actually take a online survey right then and right there and actually get a result and find out a little bit more about where they're at.
Oh, good. Well, if you have any questions for our guests about gambling or about any other services that the Chinese Health Coalition provides, you can give us a call. And we are speaking right now about gambling. So, I'm learning a lot so far. So tell me a little bit more about what people can do if they find themselves, they've taken the test and they're like, oh, God, this isn't just fun anymore. This is some sort of terrible addiction or disease. What do they do?
Sure. I think I could probably first talk a little bit about for those who maybe are sort of veering, because we really could think of gambling on a spectrum, right? On one end, people who never gamble at all.
Right.
And on the exact opposite, probably people who could be labeled as gambling addicts, whose gambling has caused very severe problems and consequences. But most people probably fit somewhere in the middle. Some people may occasionally have problems. Some people may start to be veering into the area where we might consider them problem gamblers. And so there are some prevention tips that we would offer.
Okay.
And then Ken could probably talk a little bit more about, for those who are more severe, what kind of counseling and what kind of assistance they can get. In terms of prevention, what we would recommend is that, always being an informed consumer. So before you go educating yourself about, what are your real chances of winning before you buy that next lottery ticket or get that next bus ticket to go to Vegas, right? And if you choose to gamble, if you choose to go, always have a plan. We recommend things like setting limits of, if I win X amount of dollars, I stop.
That's so hard. It's
hard,
the
right?
worst.
It is.
Willpower.
I know.
Having that plan, but sometimes what we find is also that people sometimes may feel like they may need to take a friend. It's kind of like the designated driver concept, right?
Yeah.
Bringing someone you can trust to help you stay within those limits. Obviously not gambling beyond what you can't afford, what you cannot afford to lose. Along those lines, leaving ATM cards, credit cards at home are, good tips to do. And I think, what we found is that it's also helpful to change your frame of thought about the money that you bring. Instead of thinking the money that you bring as investment, that I'm going to double or triple this, instead think of it as cost of my entertainment. That I'm sitting there, I'm playing slots, I'm playing the card games, I'm being entertained, and this is the price that I'm paying.
Right.
So that at the end of the night, even if you're at a loss, you won't feel this urge to try to go back and, win back your investment.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's the way I look at it. I just paid $20 to sit at a table for an hour, and it's just kind of like watching a movie.
Right.
Or something,
Exactly.
that's what you went there to do, and it's all fun, and then you lose all your money. No, you don't. So what happens? So those are great tips, and I've heard those before. So what if someone doesn't have that ability and they find themselves sort of veering off?
So if a person is veering off, we have a helpline number, and that's 1-888-968-7888. The reason for all the 8s in it is because 8 is considered a lucky number by the Chinese. So people can call that number, and they can get more information from the person who picks up the line. So they might also want to set up a time to meet with a counselor face-to-face. And this doesn't have to be a gambler. It could also be a family member or a friend of a gambler who tend to also be very much affected by the gambler's behavior. Once they come in for counseling, they can have the option of going through one-to-one counseling on an ongoing basis, or they could also join some support groups that we have. So this could be a support group with other gamblers, or again, a support group with other spouses or family members or friends of problem gamblers. During the course of their counseling, they'll also get some money management tips also. They'll learn how to do a budget. They'll learn how to keep their debt from mounting. We'll refer them out to sources where if they have credit card debt, they can figure out ways to stop that debt and develop a plan for them to pay it all off.
And so you sort of mentioned maybe who's targeted in the gambling or what kind of problems it causes, but is there a particular type of person that is usually the one that sort of does the veering off? Are they younger? Are they older? Do they have a certain demographic? Like who are they?
Sure, that's a great question actually. We do know from research that there are certain characteristics that may put you at a greater risk. They may have things to do with something like genetics or actually life experience. We know that actually addiction can be inheritable. We know that if you have family history of substance abuse or even mental health issues, your chances of becoming a problem gambler or even other addictions for that matter is greater. But there's other things that have to do with more like life experience. We know that all addiction really boils down to is the addicts using either the substance or the behavior to avoid negative emotions or negative or pain and suffering. And in particular, we find that those who have experienced traumatic events actually have very high incidence and prevalence rates of addiction, including problem gambling. So we find that a lot of war veterans, we're seeing a lot of them now returning from Iraq that have a lot of substance abuse as well as gambling addiction, because gambling and drinking are really things are sanctioned and accepted as forms of pastime in the military, and other things that childhood sexual abuse or physical abuse. So abuse survivors also have very high rates, and we're finding that for the Asian community, a lot of the refugee asylum seeker communities who've been through a lot coming here, right? Been through war, been through genocide, been through torture, that they also oftentimes have very high rates of addiction, including gambling addiction.
So what, do you have any, I don't want it to sound all gloom and doom and people, if they're off course, they're all just addicted to gambling. So what are sort of the rates of, I don't know what you would call it, not like resurrection, but rates of
recovery.
Recovery, there you go. Yeah. Do you have statistics on rates of recovery, or how easy is it for someone who's sort of has this addiction to sort of get back on track?
Sure. I think, it's currently what we're faced right now is that there's not a whole lot of research. Where problem gambling is probably where substance abuse field was 20 or 30 years ago, in terms of that it's not really accepted as a health issue largely, and that there's not a lot of support or funds for research. California has done some research, and as well as in the US. We do know that just like with other addictions, relapse rates, meaning reuse or falling back into the pattern of gambling again, can be quite high. It really has to do with how much support there exists in the community. And right now for gambling, unfortunately there isn't much in terms of how easy is it for people to access support groups. How is it available in languages that people speak? Are there a lot of low cost and affordable counseling options available? And so with all these questions, are they covered by insurance? And for many of these questions that I'm stating right now, unfortunately the current answer is no. And so right now our environmental landscape it's not conducive to recovery. But we do also see that in our counseling program, that we do have, it does take a lot of commitment, and that people who really want it can successfully do it. And we do try to provide as much support as we can through support groups, through peer groups, through referring them to Gamblers Anonymous at the same time. But it is tough. It does take firm commitment, just like any substance abuse and other addiction issues. It does take the person willing to make that change, and it does take a lifestyle change. I mean, how difficult it is imagine someone in recovery when you're driving home or even on the internet, there are messages telling you to gamble all the time, right? It's really daunting.
Well, that's all very good information. We are talking to the NICOS Chinese Health Coalition, talking a little bit about their gambling program. If you have any problems of your own or in your family, or you think someone might need assistance with their gambling, you can call the hotline at 1-888-968-7888. There's a lot of 8s there. Or you can go onto the website. It's nicoschc.org. So what is one or two tips or one or two suggestions that you have that you might want to leave people who are watching with?
Say if they have any questions about their gambling behavior or someone else's gambling behavior, then do call the helpline. again, you don't have to call to get counseling.
And is everything, are the
It's all
services
free.
free that you provide?
Yeah, the counseling is actually on a sliding scale, but if the
Okay.
person can't afford to pay, we won't charge them.
Okay.
And the sliding scale is very low cost anyway. It's between $5 and $20
Okay.
per session. But yeah, if they have any questions, they should definitely give us a call. If they want to do a self-assessment, they should check into our website. But they should know that there are resources available for help.
Oh, good.
If I may add also,
Yes.
something that's very important for many gamblers seeking help is sort of this sense of confidentiality, and that, you know, their information will be kept confidential and it's not going to be spread around. Suddenly the whole neighborhood knows that they're, you know, they may have issues with gambling. So, you know, all our services are confidential, and we do keep that very safe, and a lot, again, the website offers a lot of easy to access information that they can just download and use on their own time.